for you at the Union Buildings. Behind me is the presidency, and not too long from now, we're expecting the official delivery of the interim report from the Madlanga Commission of Inquiry to land on the head of state's desk. What we do know is that it won't be released to the public just yet, that interim report. The president wants to familiarize himself with its content and the interim findings of the investigative team. Let's bring in Eldred de Klerk, who's also walked this journey with us almost on a daily basis at the Madlanga Commission of Inquiry, which is just down the hill, not far from where we are. And he's obviously been somebody who's been intimately involved in unpacking the evidence and the testimony that's been given at the commission. So Eldred, a massive milestone which culminates with the landing of that report on the president's desk today. You and I, in preparation for our conversation, were trying to decide on some of the themes that we should be talking about this morning. And one of them is the expectations that you and others in South Africa's security complex would have of the executive summary of this report. So just walk us through some of the things you expect to be in that interim report today.
Morning again, Iman, and yes, indeed. Essentially, there's a few things that the Commission can focus on and stuff that South Africa has been privy to see in real time, live, all over Channel 405 and other media. And that is, we've seen examples of poor governance, we've seen the impact of inflexible bureaucracy, and we've seen poor leadership. We've seen ministers and we've seen public officials at municipal level who were at pains to explain themselves and to basically give credible reasons for their decisions and their leadership style. We've seen poor statecraft as a result, where folks didn't understand the importance of good governance, fair procedure, solid relationships, building trust in credible systems, and ensuring that structures and systems work towards the public good. If there's simply an acknowledgement that that's the state of our civil service in South Africa, for me, that would be enough. This search for individuals to hold to account and to blame and then ultimately to prosecute, that's going to be an ongoing search. Because at the moment, we may not have sufficient evidence to completely prosecute somebody. We also have witness testimony that may still have to be looked at. Certain witnesses have to come back. So there are compelling reasons for telling us in summary form what we've seen. We've seen how vulnerable the state is, and that can be acknowledged. And then there may be other compelling reasons for not releasing a full report.
There's something that you and I chatted about yesterday, was the scale of the evidence that we received at the Madlanga Commission of Inquiry, which allows us to create a tapestry of trends, of observations and of concerns in what those witnesses collectively put before the commission. And one of the things that you mentioned was a concept called technocratic detachment. Just explain that to our viewers, the mismatch in maybe having the academic know-how to execute a task, but not to have the practical application that is necessary to manage complex departments and get them to work effectively together.
Absolutely, because what we have management, we have governance, Iman, and then we have people who are highly qualified. What they lack and what they don't have is that they don't have the necessary competencies to actually execute their management, governance, and leadership functions, and that is equally important. And then they default to ensuring that there's procedural compliance and that there's bureaucratic tick boxing. But the tick boxing may not actually deliver public services. Yet they are compliant, because minimal compliance ensures that I can be judged. My key performance areas are covered, but at the same time, I am not performing to a given standard, and I'm not delivering to a given standard, but I'm getting through my day. And a lot of public servants are essentially just saying, it's okay for me to get through my day.
There's the other thing called the personalization of power, in the way that people who may not be practically suited for a role. And, I'm thinking about people like Julius Mkhwanazi, the suspended deputy EMPD in the city of Ekurhuleni, in terms of what he was able to bring to that role. We saw the expression of affection that he had for the then city manager, Dr. Imogen Mashazi, and what that leads to in terms of the networks of association, the networks of the politics and personalities of power.
Yes, Iman, it's about personal power, and personal power is about connections. It's about saying that I need to retain the affinity, the loyalty, or the approval even of a few, because they will further my career and or make my job easier. There's always been this caveat, Iman, is that you don't have to like the people you work with. You got to respect them, you got to understand their role, and need to be committed to work with them in integrity and ensure that you do the very best you can. This thing about, yes, it's nice and affable to braai together, to occasionally get together, but essentially at the workplace, we're not a family. We don't owe each other undue loyalty, and especially not where we see things that we then feel we cannot actually report on or comment on. I cannot correct you, and you will not correct me, because what we don't want to do is rock this relationship. So, and yet others will use their charm and their connections and their personal power to further their own ends, as opposed to further the actual mandate that is given and the task that is given to them. So this personalization, this use of personal power in the workplace that amounts to connections and loyalty can be misplaced. And at the same time, we've seen that on display, and we've seen the fruits, the impact of that in real time, Iman.
Well, let's talk about real time next. And even though the presidency said that the interim report would not be made public, the final report, which we're expecting in 2026, will, there are some actions that can be taken in the immediate to medium term. And I want, from your perspective, to share what some of those actions you think could flow from this interim report. In my mind, I'm thinking about the civil suit that the suit that the family of Emmanuel Mbense, that is the man who was murdered in 2022, the man about whom Witness D and Marius van der Merwe testified about as having been complicit in a cover-up of his murder. AfriForum and those institutions which are taking on the family's case are saying, well, Marius van der Merwe could have been asked questions, he could have been arrested and being made to explain his complicity, which he confessed to in the Madlanga Commission of Inquiry. Others like Revo Space for their inactivity in not acting when they knew or had heard what had happened, and just a whole cascading series of events that can flow almost immediately in terms of either investigations or at least criminal charges being put to some people. What are your thoughts on some of those immediate actions that can be taken?
Iman, that is going to have to be the nature of the complexity of the work of the Commission going forward. They have a very limited time after this. In fact, a matter of a few months in which they have to then deliver their final report. They got to ensure that they have a robust and credible support team of investigators who now pursues the lines of inquiry that has come out of the 45 days or so of witness testimony. That can happen parallel or alongside actual in-person testimony or in-camera testimony. They can pursue further affidavits, and they can work directly as the evidence starts to amount with prosecutors to consider how compelling that evidence is that can lead towards cases. They cannot come in support of civil suits, unfortunately. They cannot present the evidence they have in support of civil suits, because at the moment, essentially what they have is incomplete evidence. As we said earlier, they may still have witnesses to protect, or they may have to recall certain witnesses because their testimonies have been deposed, for example. it might be reckless at this time to assume that we have the full picture or that we know it all. So you are absolutely right, Iman, to say that further inquiry needs to happen alongside, and this is where we hope that the Commission has the necessary resources and personnel to continue with those lines of investigation and to prepare that which they're starting to find for the National Prosecuting Authority for consideration and for hopefully for prosecution.
What is also interesting through the testimony is just how vulnerable to attack political influence and encroachment on authority or proximation with authority. This commission has revealed to us through that testimony of how people can be influenced and how these networks, potentially criminal networks, as the allegations go, can take root in places across the country. I mean, the city of Ekurhuleni is just one example. But just talk to us about how instructive this commission has been in showing us how easy it is to hijack the state.
Absolutely, man. Thank you. That's in fact, I think, the headline for the Commission's report, as that we saw how easy it is for criminals to penetrate the state and government. We also see a lack of state capacity and capability. We might call Brown Mokhotsi naive to think that his memorandum of understanding with CAT Security and I forget the other company was one that was not, of good intent and goodwill, and he didn't read it all because he thought he needed their capability. Yet it is a capability that he, as Deputy Chief of Police at the time, should have had. It's a capability he should have been supported with. So in public-private partnerships, we need to read the fine print. And public-private partnerships should not build and rely solely on the capability of the private, but actually build the capability of the public so that we can have strong, robust, and credible institutions that that can serve the public good and the public will towards the end. So we've seen how vulnerable the state is, how the state's capability and capacity needs to be strengthened. And we now see other state departments, including, for example, the National School of Government, that is supposed to ensure that we build the state capability, how they now need to account and strengthen their, not just their willingness, but also their ability to help these state institutions. So that's indeed the headline, Iman.
And we did try to get at one point the principal of the National School of Government, Dr. Busani Ngqaweni, to talk to us, and maybe that conversation might be germane now. The other thing, before I let you go, Eldred, is the public is saying, well, why can't we see this report? We want to have eyes on this report. I know you touched on it lightly in your first answer, but just maybe, again, share from your perspective, your understanding of the need for it at this stage to be withheld from the public view.
Absolutely. It is prudent that the Commission, Iman, waits until all evidence is gathered. I understand the anxiety of us all, that in fact we really at the point where in the country we've been kept in suspense, we've been glued to our TVs and your comment and those of others, and we want to see something done. We've been frustrated with reports not being released in the past, and we probably have very little confidence that something might come from this. However, it is prudent and it's necessary that we wait till all evidence is gathered. Then the Commission can use this way, the Commission can ensure that that which they put in front of the public and in front of the President is credible, it is complete, and it actually leads to robust and decisive action. Without a complete picture and without a complete understanding, we may be addressing the wrong issue and the wrong set of problems, and therefore our strategies will in fact be misguided or misled. Also, an interim report, finally, Iman, if not well crafted, and that's maybe I'm calling for an executive summary of key highlights rather than a complete report, can be misinterpreted, can lead to suspicion and further speculation, or further anxiety with people say, am I now being implicated? Will they come after me? And yet I may not be the person that they're actually referring to or suspect in the report. So prudent, wait, get a complete report, and ensure that that report is credible, it's robust, it's complete, and it can lead to decisive action. And as the public, let's take a breath. Let's give ourselves a little break until the middle of January. Let's enjoy our families, and then let's say, well, let's get back to watching all of this play itself out.
Appreciate your analysis and time as always, Eldred de Klerk. Thank you very much.